Today's video we'll be looking at the Deskpro EN D.
We review old technology from games to old PCs, and don't forget the toys. Oh yeah, ancient electronics, we cover it all.
So why I had that hesitation there at the beginning, this is obviously a Compaq Deskpro, but there's a little hesitation there. Is there a disc in here? No. Okay, there's a little, I had a little hesitation there because there's a sticker here for this Compaq, and it's labeled as a, Compaq END. From what I can tell, but when you look up, do like a Google search or something, you don't really see Compaq ENDs. They're all Compaq ENs, so I don't know what that's about. So it's either just like a desktop form factor EN, or possibly it is an END. I don't know. The big difference with this thing as opposed to, well, depending on the order I shoot these, hopefully it will be in the right order, but I did do a quick previous video on an Optiplex GX110, and that video ended a little short. I wasn't really enthusiastic about doing that video, and part of it was because basically the GX, I think it was 110 that I did, it was just, I already did that computer like a couple years ago, and it was in just a small form factor. And the one I recently did was basically the exact same thing, just in a full desktop case. Same motherboard and everything. Now, I also, at one point in the past, did a video on a Compaq Deskpro EN small form factor. But what the big difference is this machine right here, in the full desktop case, even though it possibly has kind of like the same model number or the same designation, this is a completely different beast. Motherboard is different. It is completely different inside from that small form factor. So it's not just taking the motherboard from that small form factor machine and sticking it in a large case. It's completely different inside. So it will be quite interesting to look at it. So what do we have with this machine? Basically, this is a 2000-ish era desktop machine. It seems like it was maybe meant more for business applications than home use. It is a Pentium 3 class machine. As you can tell, there is a Pentium 3 sticker here. It's kind of similar to some of the IBM computers I did. I have an IBM personal computer 300PL, and this is very similar to that machine. I actually quite like this case. It's very kind of sturdy. I mean, it's plain, more or less. I mean, this is a little kind of like an embellishment here for style. But other than that, it is very plain, but it's very sturdy. Very sturdy, kind of even though this is probably from like the late 90s, early 2000s, it's still a very like classical sort of beige mid 90s look. I quite like the aesthetics of this case, and I also like the sturdiness, and it's quite hefty. It's quite heavy, actually. So we're going to take a look at it here. Start on the front really quickly, nothing too spectacular. We have a floppy drive, 1.44 megabytes. It is sort of that thing I don't like where it's kind of like built into the case where you have to put a floppy drive here, but at least the styling is slightly interesting. It's not just flat, it has this, it kind of like curves down, it's kind of rounded. Kind of strange, but it works. It's a little bit different. And then we have two bays here for 5¼ inch devices. Most likely you're probably going to see CD drives in here. And we have this one blank, and then what we have here is a CD drive. Can't really tell speed or anything from just looking at it. It's just a nice sort of blank generic CD drive. This would also probably be fine in like a 46 or an early Pentium or something like that. I actually prefer when these drives don't have like markings on them other than like compact discs. So hopefully it works. Other than that, we have a power button. Aesthetically, it's a little bit different. It's not like a round or a switch. So it is like a push button, but it is sort of like long. It's almost like a cylinder in an indentation. It's a little different. Obviously, it does the exact same. The functionality is the same of any power button really, but it's a little bit different, and it's quite large, hard to miss. Two lights here. We have this is the power LED and hard drive activity LED, so not a lot of like weird things going on there on the front, pretty standard. Starting here, standard power supply with a 3-prong connector. As you see, we probably have some kind of riser card, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4 expansion slots here, and it looks like 2 are filled with, looks like a modem and an Ethernet card. So here are our built-in I/O. We have 2 USB. At the moment, I'm not sure what these are. I'm not sure if it's 2.0 or like 1.x. Probably not 2.0. It's probably 1.x. I'll see if I can look that up, and then I'll put it in the video. Then we have audio. We actually have 4 audio jacks here. It looks like headphones, microphone, line in and out, PS2 ports, PS2 for mouse, PS2 for keyboard, parallel port for a printer, and then we have our 2 serial ports next to each other. So if you'll notice, right all the way over here we have what seems to be a VGA connector and a video card. That is indeed a video card installed there. So right away, seeing this, we can kind of tell what kind of motherboard in there, and that is an NLX motherboard. I believe that stands for NLX, Next or New Low Profile Extended Motherboard. I think that's what it stood for. But anyways, one of the little quirks of that motherboard is usually the AGP slot is way over this corner away from the other ISA and PCI slots. So that's what that is there. Now, the video cards for these, actually, if you have a number of old, like late 90s, early 2000 video cards at home or in your stash, a lot of them are probably compatible with this form factor, and you might not know it. It was very sort of, a lot of like bigger brands and video cards came out with these cards that were in a compatible form factor. So yeah, for the most part, you do need like NLX compatible video cards, and when I open this up and pull that card out, I'll show you what I'm talking about. But yeah, this motherboard, I wouldn't say that the style or the form factor is rare. I've seen it, and it's not super duper common, but I've come across several computers that use that sort of profile. I know the IBM personal computer line, they use the NLX motherboard profile. So if we look at like the service tag here on this machine, you can see what I mean where it says END. I put in Compaq Deskpro END, and I didn't really get much. It was all like, I think it was EN. So that's, again, that's why I was a little hesitant, like, is it END? I don't know. But we get a lot of information on here. I'm guessing that is the CPU speed. It's a Pentium 650 megahertz. I'm not remember. This might be, the 64 might be the amount of RAM in there. I don't quite remember what these other things mean. Maybe number of expansion slots. I'm not sure about the 10. But yeah, we can tell a lot right here without opening up. Well, at least the probably the CPU speed there. So other than that, looks like it had Windows NT. It is Workstation 4.0, 1 to 2 CPUs. Okay, so let's open this up, and to open it up, I believe you depress these little buttons on each side, and then you pull this off in some way. So I'm going to now remove the top of the case. Okay, so my mistake, the top of the case doesn't actually remove. Actually, the whole case, including the front, does. You just press those in, and then you just pull the whole case forward, and then I'm going to lift it. Yeah, then it lifts up and off. Okay, so here we are with the top off of this case. Not much we can see on this side. You can see there's a big kind of riser board in the center. We have our, looks like a power connector there. We do have the hard drive here. It is a Maxtor. This does look like the drive that came with it. So this looks like this might be the original hard drive. Just from this quick glance here, I don't see the size. It might be 10. Actually, I think that's what 10 is. I think 10 is the size. So this is probably like 10 gigabytes, maybe. That's my guess. Not 100% sure on that. I guess we'll find out when we power this guy up. Obviously I can tell it is NLX. There's the AGP port right there, and if you can see the video card, this is that form factor right here. This is what I mean when I say it has to be this special form factor. You might have cards where there's actually like still a piece of plastic here and you can bend it and break it off. So this form factor for video cards was very prevalent. A lot of companies like Diamond and stuff put out a lot of cards in that form factor. What is it? Looks like an ATI, probably ATI Rage Turbo Pro or something like that. Oh, I see right away the onboard sound is an ESS chip, so that's really nice. I can't really see it from here. It looks like a 1869F, I think, but that's nice. It's not like really, you know, ESS made some nice sound chips, so I'm not 100% sure on that specific sound chip. I'll have to look it up, but that's promising that it's ESS. Looks like we have PCI and 16-bit ISA, so that is great. That means we can turn this into a really good DOS build if we want. Very compatible with DOS games. That's promising. Memory, looks like we have 2 sticks, and then there's a slot for another. So probably one of the first things I'm going to try to do is max out the memory. I'm not sure what this thing can take max so far. And then of course we have the CPU right here, but this is a slightly unusual and interesting orientation. So this is slot 1, but they have it where instead of being vertical, it's actually like lying down. So this looks like some kind of like angle kind of connector, and then it connects from the side rather than straight down. That's very unusual. I'm trying to think if I've seen a build where they did slot 1 like that, and I can't think of any come to mind. I don't know what the advantage would be in this case is obviously high enough that it would have supported. I mean, I guess that would be handy if you were going for a more like low profile desktop case or something, but this one's tall enough where it wouldn't have made a difference. But that's interesting. And then we have a case fan here that would just blow over it. So yeah, interesting. We have a little switch box here. Now I did look, the switch, the guide, very handy, is on here, and as you can tell, it looks like it will do 66 and 100 core front side bus, and this only goes up to 400 megahertz. But there's a little thing, 450 megahertz and faster. Celeron and Pentium processors are shipped with the processor speed preset. So I guess it will override your switch settings, but I didn't see this machine like officially supporting Pentium 2s, just Pentium 3s, but if it could do this, the 66 megahertz front side bus, and I'm pretty sure these are all Pentium 2s, I should be able to, if you so choose, you could probably put a Pentium 2 in there, no problem. Usually Pentium 2 and Pentium 3 slot 1s are you know, compatible with one another, at least in my experience, but yeah, that's promising if I wanted to put in a Pentium 2, and I might use this machine for a while for some testing. So I don't know, depending. So I might end up eventually downgrading the CPU. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it. But so after doing a little bit more research on this sound chip, it is indeed a pretty decent sound chip. It is Sound Blaster compatible. It's great for DOS. There is built-in like OPL FM synth. It's not like a Yamaha, but it's ESS's kind of version, ESS FM or something, which is pretty darn compatible and sounds pretty good. So that is good news for a DOS build if you want to turn this into a DOS build. I have read some reports though that it can be finicky. It seems to be pretty easy to set up in pure DOS, but if you're doing like a Windows 98 or DOS Windows 98 kind of build, I have read that there was a couple forum posts, various forums of people having issue with this chip when it's integrated into the board. It will work. Sound Blaster didn't seem to be much of a problem, but getting the FM synth to work under DOS seemed to be a problem for some people. So if you have that issue, just I've seen some of the solutions were like changing some settings in the BIOS or making sure your mixer settings weren't 0, because maybe sometimes it will set it to 0 by default. And also make sure, like, check your drivers. I guess maybe older versions might have some issues. So yeah, good chip. It's nice to have it on there. That's cool that there's some decent integrated sound. But just be aware, it might be a little finicky. You might have to mess around a little bit to get it working properly. Alright, not too much else to say here. It is indeed a Rage Pro Turbo AGP. Looks like 128 megabytes of memory. One of these looks, maybe this one was the original 64 maybe, and the previous user doubled it, added another 64 megabyte stick. I don't know what the max this is. I'm guessing 512, but I think what I'm going to do now, I'm going to put it back together as it is. I'm going to put the top back on, and I'm going to power it up and see what's on there. And I'm probably going to, regardless, I'm probably going to reformat, and I think I'm going to turn this into like a Windows 98 SE type computer at the moment. And then we'll test some games and go from there, maybe max it out, at least the memory, maybe do some other things. Actual speaker for something this late in the game with an actual speaker, not like a piezo speaker. But that's nice. So you don't necessarily need to connect like external speakers to it. Although I'm sure almost any external speaker is going to sound better than this single speaker. It's nice to have that option. This riser card, I believe these pull out. I bet. I thought maybe like these lift up and then it lifts up. You'd probably want to disconnect this, but anyways, well, yeah, see, there's instructions right here. So yeah, that definitely can lift off. So here I've pulled up the tabs, and I pulled this up a good bit, so not too much interesting down there, but I don't really have a reason to take the whole thing off, but there are a couple connectors that might be a little, like there's a Molex there, and to pull this off, I'm probably going to need to like disconnect all this stuff, and it's really not worth my time and effort at the moment, because it looks like this Molex might be a little awkward to read. Probably not, I guess, if I pull it all out. But anyways, it's kind of pointless for me to do. But yeah, on the back here's there's like the power connection, and then you've got your floppy and your IDE connectors there. So seems the back of this board seems to be where all your like power supply and floppy drive and CD drive and hard drive and whatever else on this side will connect to the main system through this kind of riser card. So I'm just going to push this guy back down and reseat it. And worth noting here with these expansion slots here, we have, looks like 4 PCI and 2 16-bit ISA. Now, these upper cards, you can remove without issue like normal, at least this first and second one. But if you want to remove any cards lower down like this one, you're going to have to pull up those tabs and pull this whole like riser card assembly up and out, which is slightly inconvenient. And if we look right here, there's actually silk screenings for the switch settings, and the numbers, this actually goes up to setting for 600 megahertz, whereas if we look over here on this sheet, I believe this one only went up to 400 megahertz. So motherboard is a little bit newer apparently with the switch instruction, so always check that. And here's a shot where I removed the RAM and I removed the CPU card. As part of the chipset is under the CPU. It does have a 440BX chipset. There's the CPU right there. Basically, this is all that's kind of holding it down, or at least not necessarily holding it down, but you can't really remove it. You have to remove this thing. This kind of locks it in place. Just a simple little plastic tab. I use this screwdriver to pop off. But yeah, it's just like an angle, like adapter. So it's not vertical. It just kind of turns it, and then you install the CPU in on the side. Again, I don't really see what the advantage of doing it that way is, except for height issues. But like I said earlier, this case wouldn't have had any kind of height issue with the CPU being installed in a vertical position. But it's a little different. It's a little bit neat. this is the video card we had installed. This is the ATI Rage Pro Turbo. I strongly suspect this was the card that actually came stock with the machine. It was pretty common in OEM builds. I wouldn't say this was the first choice for gamers. This probably competes, you know, around the level of maybe the original Voodoo or like the Riva 128, kind of like that era. I've never really particularly loved the earlier ATI Rage cards. I think the Rage 128 is a decent card for gaming, but anything earlier than that, I've never really been a fan of these cards. I suppose this is one of the better or late. I think this might be the last one before the Rage 128. There might be another one like the XL or something. I don't know off the top of my head if this supports the ATI's proprietary API. SIF, I believe what it is called. I think this might support games that use SIF. Not a ton of those games, but it's not like the greatest card, especially if you're rocking a Pentium 3 like this build. I'd probably, you know, throw in something a little bit better than this if I was going to use this Deskpro as like my daily driver machine. But I mean, it will do the job for some things, but yeah, again, probably wouldn't be my #1 choice. What I'm going to do, I'm going to put the case back together, and then we'll fire it up and see if it fires up. Okay, now for a moment of truth. Will it power on? So let's see. I have not powered this thing on. This is the first time powering it up, so here's hoping. Okay, well, at least something's happening. I don't see anything on the screen yet, but it's not good. Nothing in the drive opens. That's not good, but maybe it's just a video issue. Yeah, there definitely should have been something by now, so it is not. Wait, well, oh, there we go. Gee, that took a while. Compaq Deskpro, counting up memory there. Yeah, that took a while to display anything. I'm surprised. Usually it doesn't take that long. Usually. Probably can't see it. It's probably quite blurry. I'm just getting a bunch of little errors. Looks like it did see the disk 1 if you're running Unix. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, this is very... well, actually, I don't have a keyboard hooked up. But it is doing something. But this is all very workstation-ish. So... let me try this again, but with a keyboard. Okay. I got a little further. Okay. Yeah, I got a desk. This is different. I haven't seen this before. This, like I said, this is very sort of servery, desktop-y. It went through. I think it was giving issues because it, like, you know, the CMOS is obviously dead. It was missing. It wasn't seeing like settings. Then I got a nice little compact screen, and then I got to this, time and date not set, and then, you know, network service boot, setup, and then F1 boot. But let's go into the setup, or at least try to. Okay, yeah, here. System information. So, processor speed, Pentium 3, 650, you know, we're running on a 100 megahertz front side bus. That's pretty nice. It gives a lot of processor information. The stepping, cache size L1 and L2, total memory size, system board revision even. So that's a lot of nice, helpful information. Not too much else. Obviously, we don't have like overclocking options and things like that. Save changes and exit. And then let's see if there's that compact screen. So now let's see if there's something installed. It's still time and date not set. All right. I guess maybe I have to actually set it. Let's hit F1 to boot, and let's see if it will boot into something. All right, we got Microsoft Windows and XP Home Edition. That's not very workstation-y. What is it? Maybe this is 98. Let's see. Let's see what Microsoft Windows is here. that DOS? Are we in... What? Let me just see here. Version. Okay, Windows 98. So is this Windows DOS? What? Huh, I wonder what... How odd. It takes me into what looks like Windows DOS, like DOS 7 or something. The normal commands to get into to load up Windows don't work, so maybe they just set this up as like a command prompt, like a... I don't know. Yeah, this might just be like Windows. I've never seen another I've never got just a random computer and I've seen it set up with like where it will go into like DOS. When it's not actually DOS, it's like Windows version of DOS. I don't know. I wasn't expecting that. Let me see what we get when I try to load in XP. Alright, so choosing XP loads us into XP Home Edition. As you can see, it's shifted a little bit to the right. I think I can adjust that if I want to. I will in a second, but yeah, not a lot on here. I poked around a little bit, and this looks like barely used. Like maybe it was reformatted recently. It's definitely not like a clean install or anything. There's some stuff on here, but not a lot. This looks like it was barely, it was like reformatted and then barely used for anything after that. But yeah, the specs on this are pretty low for a Windows XP system, like 128 megabytes of RAM. Pentium 3 650 isn't horrible, but because of the slots in here and stuff, I think I'm going to try to turn this into a nice Windows 98 system. So I guess the first thing we're going to do is reformat the hard drive, and then we'll try to install Windows 98 and just kind of go from there. Another thing to note here is the battery, the CMOS battery. So mine was dead, so I removed it. But what we have for a CMOS battery, this is the 2450. So it's not the more common 2032, which you see used for a lot of these lithium CMOS batteries. So it's a bit bigger, as you can see. So yeah, you can get these. They're not too expensive. It's the 2450. Although this one says, let me see here. So this one's 2450N. I don't know if that's any different. This one's just 2450. I don't know if the N really means anything, but yeah, just keep in mind it's not going to be your standard 2032 in there. So before I install Windows, I need to be very clear, because when I did my last video on like a kind of a generic OEM machine, it was on the Optiplex, and for whatever reason, I was getting an error whenever I would try to... I couldn't install Windows 98, and I was getting an error. I forget if it was not a bootable disk or no OS found error. I can't remember at this moment. But I got a lot of comments in the comment section suggesting, and I appreciate the comments, by the way, and the help, but people were suggesting it was one of two things. One, the hard drive was previously formatted to NTFS, I think. I think that's the abbreviation. It's the format that like Windows 2000 and I think Windows XP and up uses. And that Windows couldn't understand that format, and that's why it wasn't doing anything. And the second comment I kept getting is that, well, Windows 98 has to have, you need a boot disk. It is not bootable from the CD. And I was getting very confused because I've installed Windows literally well over 100 times by now, and I've never had to use a floppy, and I've never had any of these issues. And then I realized it was really my fault. I really should have been more specific on the process. So virtually 100% of the time when I'm going to install an OS, I don't know the exact name, but I use this. I burnt this a long time ago, but it is like an F disk. It is a hard drive utility, so this is bootable, and I always boot this up, and then it will tell me all the information about the hard drive, and then I'll format it. So I will pre-format the hard drive. If I'm installing like Windows 98, I will pre-format it with a third-party utility to FAT32. And I just use this. It helps with any issues that might show up. So it wasn't the formatting issue. It was pre-formatted in FAT32. I should have made that clear. Now, why I was getting so confused with Windows is because I can't tell you the last time I used just vanilla Windows. It was, when I install Windows, it is always Windows 98 SE. I believe it's the OEM version, but it's always the second edition, and that is bootable. You do not require a floppy disk for Windows 98 SE. At least the OEM version, or at least the version I've been using for like 2 decades now. So yeah, that was the confusion. It's just when I've used Windows 98 SE for so long, it's just when I think Windows 98, I think SE. It's like it doesn't even occur to me that there were older versions of Windows 98 that behaved quite differently in some ways. So just to make it clear, I am installing Windows 98 SE on this machine. So the first thing I really wanted to do was just run a few synthetic benchmarks just to check for stability or any, weird anomalies, and everything looked okay. It kind of ran as expected, but I didn't get any crashes or weird things. Again, I'm going to take the moment just to apologize real quick. I do not have my direct capture set up yet. Part of it's being lazy, and part of it is I want to set it up a certain way, but I don't think direct capture is always necessarily necessary. I think some people like this kind of view where you actually see the computer running on the CRT. Sometimes it doesn't look too bad, but it's hard to get it where it's not like blurry or things like that. So yeah, I mean, it works in some situations, but it's not the greatest method. It's like we're going back to 2010, but like I said, I think some people like to actually see the computer running on the actual CRT rather than direct capture. But yeah, anyways, the benchmarks turned out okay. Numbers were about what I would suspect with the Rage 3D Turbo. Is it Turbo Pro? So yeah, these are the synthetics, and then we will let's just take a look at a few games. So the first game I wanted to try out was Crimson Skies. Now I'm running Fraps, so tack on a few FPS since it does steal a few FPS when it's running. But at 800 by 600 resolution, the performance was pretty much fine, but I was running into a lot of weird graphical anomalies. It didn't look good. You can see the little cloud puffs coming off the plane all the time. I don't think that's correct. And it just, yeah, there was a lot of little graphical anomalies. Again, this is not the fault of the CPU. I think this is purely that Rage Pro cards. Maybe if I played around with drivers, I could have got it to look a little bit better. But yeah, just a lot of little glitches. It just didn't look great, although performance was okay. Now, the next game I wanted to try out was Slave Zero, and as you could tell right away, graphical issues. I believe I was also running this game at 800 by 600. Again, performance was playable. It hovered around 30 FPS. It wasn't like fantastic silky smooth, but it was playable. But as you can see here, you can't even see the text. It's just green blocks. And again, although the game is playable, just a lot of little graphical anomalies. Just effects aren't working, and it just doesn't look great. You could see, like, especially with like the lighting effects, there's just like black boxes and stuff. So yeah, not great. Again, this is the video card. It's just not up to running this game. Again, I don't know if I played around with drivers a little bit. I was using the latest drivers here, but maybe if I tried a few older drivers, maybe I would have gotten a little bit better results with the graphical issues. But I don't know, I kind of get a feeling that it wouldn't really help all that much.
Destroy this sector's communications array by taking out its 3 core generators. Once the array is down, you'll be able to penetrate the lab safely. Your first target is ahead 0.9 clicks. You'll have 2 more after that, so stay alert. We'll be tracking your progress from here.
Now, I can't be too hard on the card because the video card is from like 97, 98. And those two games, I believe, are from like 99 and 2000. So I did try a little bit older game. It was a little more contemporary with the Rage Pro Turbo. And this is Tomb Raider 2. And it seemed to run just fine. Frame rate stayed around 30. And I didn't see any like graphical issues or glitches. Everything kind of looked okay. So yeah, I assumed it would run a little bit better with games that were a little more contemporary with it, as opposed to maybe games that were a few years after it was released. Now onto the subject of sound and the built-in ESS sound chip. Unfortunately, I ran into the same issue I've seen a lot of people online run into, and that is the chip worked fine in Windows. I played all sound effects and everything. I had no issues with sound in Windows, but when I got to DOS, I could not get music or FM synth. I would get digital sound effects, but no FM synth. This is regardless if I played it through a command prompt or if I tried the game through MS-DOS mode. I just could not get the thing to play sound. I tried all the tricks I could find online. I tried different versions of ESS config. I made sure my volume was not set at 0. One of the solutions was, I think from DOS days, was to go into the BIOS and actually disable the sound chip. I don't know how that works, but apparently that fixes it for some people. And that didn't work either. I removed all the extra cards, all the network cards, just to make sure there wasn't like a conflict going on. I made sure all my like IRQs and DMAs were correct. And no matter what I tried, I couldn't get it to work. I tried hooking up external speakers. I thought maybe it just wasn't routing it for whatever reason through the internal speaker. But I could not get FM synth working, only the sound effects.
Hail to the king, baby. I'm back.
At one point, I actually reformatted the hard drive again, and I installed DOS. Right here, this is DOS 7.0. It's the DOS that comes with Windows, but it was like a standalone install. You know, just trying it out, because some people have reported when they installed pure DOS, the onboard sound chip worked, they had no problems with it. But even reformatting and just installing DOS, I had the same issue. I just could not get the FM synth to work. So I had this idea that maybe there was some weird off chance where maybe the FM sound, for whatever reason, just wasn't being routed through the internal speaker, but like the sound effects were, which didn't really make a lot of sense because in Windows 98, of course, all the sound, music, and whatever came out of the internal speaker. But on the off chance DOS was just being weird like that, I did hook up some external speakers here, and unfortunately it's the same thing. I get sound effects, but no music out of these speakers or the internal speakers. I tested this in Duke 2 and Duke Nukem 3D, same issue. Also just happened to test Doom just for a different game here, and let me turn up the volume. And as you can hear, the sound effects work, but there should be no music. Let me start a new game. And yeah, it's quiet. I can sound effects, but unfortunately still I cannot get FM synth out of that ESS chip that's built in. So that was basically a fairly quick look at this machine stock as I got it, making no changes at all. And I do believe this is very close to, or if exactly the configuration when this machine was bought. It doesn't seem like the original user did any upgrades with it, except maybe they upgraded the RAM from 64 to 128, maybe. But otherwise, that's kind of how it ran stock. And not fantastic. It seemed like it ran contemporary games that work well with that video card from, say, the mid-90s. It did okay, but once we started getting into the late 90s, we started seeing some graphical issues with that ATI card. It just didn't seem up to snuff. The CPU, I believe, was more than fast enough, but I believe that video card was kind of acting as a bottleneck there, and it just wasn't supporting a lot of those graphical features from the later 90s games. Now for the sound chip, the ESS chip in there, I don't know. It is known to have problems, but I just couldn't get it running with DOS. It seemed fine under Windows, but in DOS, even when I installed, got rid of Windows and just installed DOS, even though it was DOS 7, I just couldn't get FM sound out of it, even though there's definitely FM sound built into that chip. It seems to be a common problem. I've seen many threads online, as I said earlier, dealing with this issue. Some people seem to be able to fix it by doing various things. I wasn't able to fix it. Then I'm left with the question of, do I want to dedicate X hours to get that sound working for this video for a machine I'm probably just going to pass along and not really use again? And I don't really want to spend my time doing that. But what I want to do right now, we're just going to do a few simple, relatively cheap upgrades, and then we'll see, we'll look at the same games, we'll see how it compares with these upgrades. Alright, so for our quick and easy upgrades here, none of these things are particularly rare or very expensive. Maybe the most expensive component here is the sound card, since basically all ISA sound cards seem to be going up in value, but there's nothing here that I think will really break the bank or that's hard to find. So first of all, I'm just going to add another stick of SD RAM. This is just 100 megahertz SD RAM. This is 128 megabytes, so we're going to double it to 256. I'm not sure how much it's really going to help us, but it'll be nice to just kind of put that in there. We can double our RAM, and these things are cheap as chips. Again, the most expensive component here is probably the sound card. This isn't anything really special. It's an ISA AW64. It's not a gold or anything like that. I don't know what these go for now. Like I said, I think all the ISA sound cards are starting to go up in price, but I don't remember this one being particularly valuable or expensive. It's kind of a newer one. I think it fits this machine as far as era goes. We've got, well, we don't have a wavetable header, but we do have MIDI built into it. I think you can, there's a special, you can add memory, and I think you can do sound fonts with this one. So it is a creative card, so we should get good compatibility. It doesn't have a real OPL FM chip on it, but it does well enough with FM. I've had decent luck with these cards, and they're usable in DOS as well. Over here, we're just going to stick with ATI, but we're just going to bump it up a generation, and we're going to go with the Rage 128. I think this is, again, not gamers' first choice for video cards from that late 90s era, but this should be a significant improvement over that last generation of that Rage Turbo Pro. And I think this will get rid of most of those issues, graphical issues we had with the previous card. So, and I don't think these are very expensive. Again, I haven't checked, but I don't remember these being particularly sought after. And again, make note, it is the NXL form factor compatible card. I believe this is a, well, no, I don't know if this is a Diamond OEM version, but yeah, it is compatible with this machine. So 3 really pretty simple upgrades, and then we'll see what kind of results we get. Now, when we did the synthetic benchmarks with the old card, we didn't really run into graphical glitches or errors, or it looked real weird, but you could tell here that the frame rate is much smoother. I know it's hard to see looking down that corner, but it generally stayed well above 30 FPS, where that wasn't necessarily the case prior to the upgrade. So much smoother experience. And if we look at the 3D mark score at the end, I think it's like several thousand marks higher than the previous build. So just a note here, I had to turn off fraps because it was doing this weird thing with Crimson Skies where it was like skipping frame. It was like really juddery, and it wasn't giving an accurate reading on frames, I believe anyways, like 160, something crazy, but it was unplayable. It was real herky-jerky. So I went out, I turned off fraps, I went back into the game, and it was smooth as silk. So yeah, the game footage coming up won't have fraps running. And as you can see here, Crimson Skies, much better experience after this upgrade. Smoother, and also no weird graphical glitches. We don't have those weird little cloud puffs coming off the back of the plane constantly. Didn't really see too many graphical errors. It pretty much looked correct and it played good. So this game I would say is a lot more playable with this upgrade. The only thing I noticed, one little glitch at one part, I was flying over the bridge I had destroyed and it was doing a little bit of a flickering. So very minor though compared to all the weird little glitches we were seeing before. And thankfully Slave Zero now is completely working fine, and it seems that all the graphical issues and glitches are gone. As you can kind of see, it's probably a little blurry, but you can there's actual text there, not just green blocks. So yes, the Rage 128 seems to have corrected all the little graphical effects issues we were having in Slave Zero, and it seems to play and run just fine.
This communications array by taking out its 3 core generators. Once the array is down, you'll be able to penetrate the lab safely. Your first target is ahead 0.9 clicks. You'll have 2 more after that, so stay alert. We'll be tracking your progress from here.
The AW64 also seems to have fixed our sound problems. I can get FM sound, but for some weird reason, Duke Nukem 3D was sounding weird, and I couldn't quite figure out why, even though it seemed to work fine in the setup. Almost like certain channels weren't coming through. Again, I tried it with the speakers hooked up, same issue. I restarted the computer, and it was having the same issue, but none of the games were having the issue, so I don't know what was going on with Duke Nukem 3D. Regardless of that issue, though, the other games seem to work fine with the sound and FM synth, whether in MS-DOS mode or using the command prompt.
I am back.
And that is our look at this Compaq Deskpro. I think it's an EN, but maybe it's a Compaq Deskpro EN-D. A lot more luck with this than the Optiplex I reviewed like 2 videos earlier. I do like this machine. I like the case. It's metal. It's very sturdy. I actually briefly considered swapping out my IBM of this kind of make, Windows 98 Pentium 3 Slot 1 IBM machine. I actually considered swapping it out for this, if only because this case seems a little more solid than the IBM, which is all plastic. But in the end, I think I'll stick with the IBM. I could not get the ESS onboard chip working with music, with FM sound effects in DOS. It seemed to work fine in Windows. I don't know, I couldn't figure out why it wasn't doing FM sound in DOS. Now, this apparently is a common problem. There are many threads about it online. Some people have had success in getting it working. I tried all the tricks I could find and I didn't. I'm sure there's probably a way, maybe if I tried more drivers. But anyways, the upgrades, the simple upgrades we did, initially I think stock, this machine, at least with the 600 MHz Pentium 3, is a little, the video card is definitely kind of underpowered with the CPU for like Windows 98. After upgrading the video card, and I used a Rage 128, you could throw in probably like a GeForce 2 MX or something and it would be fine. And throwing in an AUS64 sound card, and again, you could substitute for whatever ISA sound card. Except for that little hiccup with Duke, it ran fine. It was good. I think this platform could make a really good sort of Windows 98, even like DOS. I think this platform makes a pretty good like Windows 98 DOS machine for an OEM machine. I like the case. As I said, it's very solid. No reset button though, but I guess that's not like a huge deal. So yeah, a lot more luck with this than the Optiplex. Got this thing actually running and usable, so I have more or less, I think, fulfilled my promise from the Optiplex video that the next OEM build I would pretty much get up and running again, except for that hiccup with the onboard sound, but still. So yeah, that is the Compaq Deskpro. If you have any suggestions or anything like that, please let us know in the comments. If you have fixes for the ESS sound chip issue, although I've mentioned I think a few times I will be passing this machine along, there might be other people that find this video and would like a solution to the problem. So if you found a solution that works that I didn't try, please put it in the comments. Suggestions, anything like that. And of course, I always love stories of your Deskpro, Compaq Deskpro. So please leave them in the comments. Please subscribe if you enjoyed this content. Ring the bell or click the bell or whatever it is, and we'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.